It's that time of week again, or actually a little bit earlier than usual. I'm really liking how Boku no Hero Academia is getting translated on like a Thursday now. I mean, a late Thursday night, but it's still getting translated on Thursday. A lot of progress with this series I want to take a few moments to talk about before I get into, the actual review. It makes me so happy to see how Boku no Hero Academia is getting such fast translations than it used to when it first began. You remember when, like, the series first began when we only had, like, 5 chapters? I remember when I caught up the series, it had, like, only 3 chapters at the time. I remember how it took so long. Like, I remember when it was catching up, it took maybe like 2 weeks to just get a chapter, and then it slowly started catching up. I'm really happy to see how Boku no Hero Academia has slowly caught up to a really traditional release schedule on a Thursday, because it used to come out like on a Monday to a Sunday. I remember it constantly came out those type of days, and then eventually it kind of moved on to like a Saturday, and then slowly a Friday, and then now it's moving to a Thursday. It makes me very happy to see Boku no Hero Academia just getting translated so quickly, and I really have to commend the translation groups that actually take the time to sit down and translate this, series, because without them, we wouldn't be able to read this series so quickly and get to see this quality series week after week. So it makes me very happy to see something like that. So anyways, diving into this chapter 48 to be exact, we're almost at big number 50, and it's kind of shocking because we're almost at chapter 50. That's halfway to 100 chapters, and that's an incredible feat. It really is an incredible feat. Not many mangaka nowadays in Shonen Jump can make it that far and survive, the butchering and just cutting off the heads of different writers when it comes to different series, and to see how it's marching closer to that halfway point to 100 chapters, and then, it's still going strong, still has that popularity, still growing. It makes me so happy to see, especially with the quality we continue to get with each week of Boku no Hero Academia, and this chapter is no exception to the quality we have come to know and love from this series, especially with all the different side characters getting the spotlight throughout the entire chapter, all these different characters, not every single character, but a lot of characters got their different spotlight, getting to see where they're going to be working at, which person nominated them, get to find out these different heroes, like, Force Kind, to, like, the Gunhead dude, to, getting to see different people that everybody's going to have to be working with, like, the one dude that Bakugo is going to be working with, that's going to be training him and making it to where he reforms him into a good person of society. And so there's a lot of things building up and setting up with this chapter, and it goes back to the main fundamentals that I think why so many of us enjoy Boku no Hero Academia. The mangaka knows how to focus on the side characters, not just Izuku, even though Izuku had a good spotlight in this chapter, and you can kind of argue and say he had more pages and panels in this chapter, which he is the MC, so he definitely needs that. Still, the mangaka took the time to showcase all these other heroes and what they're going to be doing for these past couple chapters, and it's just something I do really respect when it comes to being like a writer, when a writer does something like this to flesh out other characters, and I'm so glad the mangaka hasn't forgotten about this and continues to do that with each passing chapter, especially with these characters that are very unique, have their own different personalities to their different quirk abilities, and just not focusing on maybe one character, and he's just trying to upgrade all these other cast of characters and build up the foundation pillar supports for this series. So, talking about each individual scenes, Bakugo's scene, that's the first part of this chapter. Bakugo, he gets kind of talked down in this chapter. Like, you have this big hero, like the number 4 best hero, talks to him. I think his name was like Best Genist. I think that's what his name was. He talks to Bakugo and says he doesn't like Bakugo. Like, he straight up just does not like Bakugo, because Bakugo seems to have the qualities of a villain and a hero, and we have all seen this. I think we all have seen Bakugo have these qualities of maybe like an anti-hero, or, a villain or a hero. I mean, I've theorized many times in the past when, the series first began, and I still slightly have a hunch that Bakugo might turn into some form of anti-hero villain or something. The way he acts, I mean, the way he chooses titles for his names and stuff like that, he seems like villain material. And I've also said this about Todoroki, and that's the very good beauty about this series, because the mangaka makes it to where any of these characters can really change and go down a different path that could go any direction. For instance, we have a hero that looks like a good guy go down a villain path. For instance, what's happening with Ida for these past couple chapters. Like, he's going down a path that's probably going to lead him into either an anti-hero or a villain, because he's going to be hunting down villains and probably killing them for, vengeance. I could see him turning into something very bad, and alongside of similarities like Bakugo and Todoroki. And that's kind of what, this chapter goes to show, showing that little setup with Bakugo that he can go down one of these paths, and I wonder what path he's going to choose and what direction he's going to go. Because if we remember, a long time ago, long ass time ago, when this series first began, Bakugo got slight hints at how Izuku got his quirk abilities. Remember, that was slightly hinted at Bakugo, like Izuku was about to kind of come out and confess to him. And so, as I said a long time ago, I remember the video chapter review I did that on, like, that most likely is going to cause it to where Bakugo is going to eventually reveal the secret of All Might to someone, and probably they're going to kill All Might because of that. Something very similar to that is probably going to happen, and that's more gradual setup there, which I'm glad the mangaka is doing. Now, next couple parts, you have all the other characters like Ochako to Momo and all of them, taking their own little spots and doing what they have to do in their different respective, nominations they've gotten or working with the certain heroes. Like, we get to see the brothers, the freaking brothers have the same quirk abilities, and they were working together, they're at the same exact location. You gotta love that fucking bromance. I love those two so damn much, the same quirk users. They're so funny, they're great, and, I mean, if Great Boy wasn't in the series, like, I would probably call them Best Boys, just because the way they act and the way they're so similar and stuff. They're really cool characters, and definitely gonna be very good heroes in the future that are going to be working upon each other to be even better than if they were by themselves. I could see something like that happening in the future, like some form of duo, twin, quirk user hero thing. I don't know what type of name they would give themselves, but I could see something like that actually happening. Now, getting into the point of Izuku. Izuku in this chapter gets a lot of development, and I guess it's not really development, it's more of characterization and setup for his character. Izuku is starting to figure out how to really work his quirk ability, one for all. As we know, or as we kind of found out, and it really didn't dawn on me until actually I started thinking about it after this chapter, I think majority of us started thinking about it after we saw this chapter. Majority of the, characters we see in this series, they've been blessed with quirk powers since they were born. Like, they've had quirk abilities for a very long time, a long time, when they were very young, like toddlers, and they've kind of grown used to these abilities like their second nature. And Izuku comes to realize this, like, he's always looked at quirk abilities and powers as if it's something very special, something that only special people have. He's always looked at stuff like that, and he's always been this person that's on the outside, like he's, an audience person. He's just sitting in the stands watching these people with all these powers just being fucking special and badass. And he's still kind of looking at quirks like that, and it makes it to where he was holding back his own growth as a person, because he was looking at his own quirk as something special when all these other users have gotten used to their powers if it was like them breathing. And so he comes to realize he needs to do the exact same things with his quirk power. So what he decides to do is figure out a way to control 5% of his power at all times. For instance, what he does was really intriguing. He got me really interested in the chapter. He decided to activate all, or one for all at once in this chapter. Like, he activated all at once throughout his entire body instead of just like his arm or hand and stuff, because as we've seen through the progression of the series, Izuku is usually just activated one for all, like in his finger, to his hand, maybe his entire arm, maybe his leg, his foot. He's usually always activated his ability in just a specific body part. He's never activated it in like the entire body. And we get to see him actually do something like this, which reminds me a lot of Gear Second. If anyone knows what Gear Second is, which you should if you've read One Piece or watched One Piece, that entire panel at the end when you see him, like, activating one for all on his entire body, it reminds me of, Gear Second. But it was really cool how he comes to figure out, like, he needs to activate this and get used to always having it active all the time. And he's trying to kind of slowly level that up to where he can bear with that power at all time. It reminds me a lot of Goku, actually. It really reminds me a lot of fucking Goku. Like, similarities to how Goku, when he wanted to stay in Super Saiyan, you remember that in the hyperbolic time chamber and stuff, when they got out, they wanted to stay in Super Saiyan at all times for like 24 hours a day to be able to conserve energy or, get used to it because it just drains so much of their stamina. That's kind of similar what's going on here with Izuku, but it's also kind of very similar to Goku's gravity training in the earlier parts of, Dragon Ball Z. If you remember when he was going in to Namek, he was doing the gravity training. It also reminds me of that, the way this chapter is structured. So I'm liking the direction the way this is taking, and it really intrigues me to see what Izuku is going to do to continue to progress himself to where he can get used to his ability. And that's about it. I mean, we also have some slight hints once again confirming All Might's inevitable death, which it's very obvious by now All Might's gonna die, and I'm not ready to see that, but we all know All Might is eventually gonna die. He's like the old man of the series that is destined to die. He grows our main character, he gets him strong, and then when, you know, our MC is strong enough, All Might will pass away and die probably to a villain, most likely the person that wounded him a long time ago, and he'll probably strive to make it to where Izuku has to surpass All Might. At that moment, I think it'll be that time to when All Might dies is when Izuku most likely will pass All Might. I think that's when that will happen, and I'm not really prepared for that because All Might is such a good character. I've really liked him a lot. I've liked the way he's acted and treated Izuku throughout the entire series, and there's a lot of mystery still left to be answered because, I mean, we get some hints that the mentor, his old acquaintance, All Might's old friend acquaintance that blessed him with his power, something happened to him, and it wasn't really revealed, but it was hinted at this person's dead or something else happened to him because Izuku asked his question, and when you saw the old man, he's like, oh, you didn't tell him nothing, did you, All Might? And so, yeah, a lot of build-up going on there. But that's about it when it comes to this chapter, so tell me your thoughts in the comments below. How do you all feel about it? I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.